Hello, and welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway podcast. That's right. Your host and tour guide is Scott Prevet, a healer, hypnotist, and a magician. And your bus driver is Jason Gobelli, also a hypnotist, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual guide. Disclaimer, neither Jason, Scott, or any of our guests here today are licensed professional psychologists or psychiatrists. So please don't make any changes to any medication or treatments that you are currently on based on the conversation that you hear here today. Just hop on the bus and enjoy the ride. Trip with us on the Inner Revelation bus. That's right.
Hi, I'm Jason Gobelli. Welcome back to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway. We are excited today because we are doing some metaphors, aren't we, Scott?
Heck yeah, get ready to learn about metaphors.
Yeah, we got an expert here today. We got the great Dale Turnbull. Dale, how are you?
Oh, I am very well, thank you. Englishman in New York. I'm grateful to be on this hippie highway with you beautiful gents. So it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, we're getting ready to travel down your Magical Psyche Highway today, Dale. So let's start right off the bat. Who are you and what do you do?
Deep questions. Deep questions. So who am I? So my name's Dale Turnbull. I'm an Englishman currently living in New York, traveling across the globe. And I have a background within neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, provocative therapy, and a variety of other things. But I really focus my attention on something called metaphors of movement, which is essentially a way of communicating the unconscious structure of our reality and making it so we can consciously get it. Basically, it's really good for if you can't really articulate your problems, you struggle, or you just feel a bit stuck. It helps you to unpack that in a way that allows you to start to take steps in a decent direction.
Nice. So what's that all about?
Oh, so essentially, you've probably heard the phrases like, I feel like I'm hitting my head against a brick wall, or it feels like I'm maybe in a pretty low place, I'm bogged down in it. And we say a lot of these expressions, and like when you learn like hypnosis or NLP or things like that, you hear these expressions all the time. But what metaphors of movement does is it actually interacts with that. So if we were to just play that role, let's just imagine there's a wall here, and it's like I'm hitting my head against a brick wall. Right? So I'm trying to progress, but I'm not really moving forward. It's like there's a block in my way. Now, I could take a step back, but that doesn't change my direction. I still can't make any progress because there's a wall in the way. Now, I am using my head at least, but my head's not really giving me the breakthrough I might be looking for. So what's interesting is there's like a hidden layer of communication that we use metaphorically, but we can then map this out to understand a whole host of things about what's maybe right for the person in that instance, what's left, what's in the background, and where they actually want to go and want to move forward. So for me, I'm a big choice guy. Like I like choice, I like possibility. And when I first got into hypnosis and NLP, I like playing. It's all about what's possible. And what I love about this is because we're getting information directly from someone's unconscious, and the unconscious in itself is really abstract and obtuse. We can get so much insight for our clients, but also for ourselves as well.
So it sounds like when they bring up the metaphor, you use their language back at them to delve into the metaphor. So is it kind of like clean language?
It's kind of like clean language. So the differential between metaphors of movement and clean language is an exploration of what's known as autogenic metaphor. An autogenic metaphor is metaphor that comes from you. Like, I'm not a therapist, I'm not imposing content, I'm not pushing my own agenda. It's what literally comes out. Clean language is an exploration of that. Whereas metaphors of movement is about communicating that and doing certain things within the metaphor to empower the individual within the metaphoric frame to start to take steps.
Nice. So is this your main thing, or do you have some other things that you got going on too?
Like in life and in business, I'm juggling multiple things. So I'm a metaphors trainer, I'm a coach. My original background was in recruitment and recruitment services. So I'm doing a lot within the corporate space that I'm developing from using the metaphors work. But how can you use this for leadership? If you think so, You've got leaders who need to take the lead. They're up front. They're the ones setting the pace, taking the direction. If you're thinking about a hike, right? The leader is the person taking the lead. But sometimes the person who's taking the lead, who's leading by example, they leave their team behind. And you've got some leaders who push their team forward. But obviously, you've got to put more effort into it. So I'm looking to bring this metaphorical work, because I'm so passionate about it, to many different facets of life, because it's got so many different applications. One, from coaching and therapy. Two, for personal development. And for me, I mean, I think there's two types of people within personal development or coaching. There's one that really like the game, like to play, like to fix, are really great with working with people. That was me. And then you've got the people who are really good at being introspective, working on themselves. And then they sort of, and one starts to learn over the other. Now, I've done NLP, I've done hypnosis, and I did a few things on myself, but I never really like did it that much. I preferred working with others. But and the main reason, if I'm brutally honest with you, it's pretty awkward, painful, unpleasant, at least from my perspective, to work on myself, right? So I naturally avoid it. But what the metaphors of movement work allowed me to do is it gave me a very non-confrontational way of looking at my own, to be pretty honest with you, and be able to start to process that in a way that, yeah, allows me to progress. And for me, since I've done it, my business has started to improve a lot more. My health has, just because I'm actively doing the work on myself, because I'm not avoiding it anymore. So, yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about it, to be honest with you.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And I noticed when you were talking about the team and your corporate stuff, you put the leader pushing the team. So in your metaphor, you got the leader in the back.
Well, it depends, right? Because if we're to use that leadership example, you got the leader from the front is good, but they can leave their team behind. It's all about pros and cons. The leader from the back can give them the direction. The team are setting the pace, but they're also choosing the direction. So if you think about a motivational point, I might guide them a little bit. You might have a leader who's side by side. So we're walking on the same path together. But you can do this with individual businesses. Let's just say I use you two gents. You might have similar metaphors. For example, you can do this with general relationships as well. Like they always say the woman's right? So if I was to draw out a metaphor,
you want to be happy.
I mean, happiness is a perspective. But anyway, there's loads of easy and happy, different. Anyway, so let's just imagine I put my wife right. She would be right in a metaphor relative to me. So my wife is right. Now, that doesn't mean I'm wrong. I'm just not right. But I am left to one side. So we can look at that. We can look into personal dynamics, but also in the workplace. Similarly, you can have some people who have the term, I need to carry my team. Now, sometimes you do need to carry people. I mean, it's not my type of coaching or therapy, but there are some therapeutic models out there where they do have to carry people, like support workers, things like that. You need to almost shoulder the weight of these people to get them from A to B. But the trouble with carrying somebody, they're not taking steps themselves. So they're reliant on you as the therapist or coach or business owner to get anywhere because they're not being active themselves. So, yeah, there's a lot of business applications, personal applications, relationship applications. And as I say, it's so far, I get really excited. I could talk about it all day. But yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you could write about it too, right?
I mean, I'm not quite close to book level. I'm not a big book, I mean, I've got books, but writing books maybe not. But who knows? Maybe one day. I mean, I've got YouTube videos and stuff because yeah, you can talk about anything. And I think the main thing that I love about the metaphors work is it's a very unique way of communicating. So in metaphors of movement, you communicate using idiomatic communication. And idiomatic communication, just to summarize, is stuff that's culturally understood what it means without having to explain meaning. For example, I look forward to something. We all know what I look forward to means. I take a step in the right direction. We all know what that means. We don't need to explain it. So let's just imagine you're a hypnotherapist and you're taking someone on a journey into their unconscious, and they elicit, oh, I just feel like I'm on a beach or I'm walking on a path. Okay. So paths are guidelines. Okay. So you've got a path in front of you. There is a way forward. Now, if you were to take a step in the right direction, you might go off track. You might go off the path, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. You can directly interact with people's unconscious experience. I mean, you can do this with dream analysis as well. But what I love about it is it's zero interpretation. It's not me getting a crystal ball and predicting what's going on. It's just me communicating your unconscious experience. So your conscious mind understands it and becomes a lot more aware of what's going on. Essentially, what we're doing from a neurological standpoint is we're reuniting conscious mind and unconscious mind, and we're communicating both hemispheres, which creates realization. One, it allows people to take responsibility for the situation they're in. But the other thing about it is it's not solution focused, because sometimes in life, things need to get worse before it gets better. And I can see someone's metaphor, I can talk through it, I can go through it, and I had a woman. So you talk about in business, you want to get to the top. You know? I want to reach the peak. This woman was on top of a mountain. She was really up there, really high status individual. Lots of people looked up to her. But the question, how long can you stay on the top of a mountain? What do people say? I don't know if have you guys ever had the experience where you have a goal that you set for yourself, and once you hit it, you reach it, you achieve it, you're a bit like,
Yeah.
Because we've reached our peak, we've reached our goal, and then what happens? Everything else is a letdown because we're going down a mountain.
Yeah.
And these things are filled with archetypal imagery. For example, we all know up is good, get promoted, going up in the world, train in the background if you heard that. And big G man normally is up there, right? Going down in the world, getting demoted, hell is down. So up is good, down is bad. So if someone's on the peak, they're up, they're in a good place. They don't want to take a step down because it will be a letdown for them. So I had this woman who was actually at HypnoThoughts. I did this businesswoman, clearly very successful, psychotherapist, all this stuff, and she was telling me about all this stuff. And she's like, "But what do I do?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, it's gonna suck." Because realistically, if she's up there, the only way is down, and she doesn't want to go down.
Maybe she can find a higher mountain.
Maybe. So she might need to, but then she'd need to move from the position she's in. So she could maybe go higher up, but she would need to go down first. It's like one of the challenges. I mean, I'm juggling multiple business things. I'm not going to say I'm perfect, I'm successful. I'm working life out, working business out. And it's a fun game. It's a fun game. But at the same point, with my background in recruitment, I've got 10 years working within recruitment. I know recruitment inside out. I know learning and development within recruitment inside out. Similarly, my wife, she had a background in pharmacy and she moved into coaching. Going from like pharmacy, where you've got a degree, a diploma, a certain level of authority, to go into coaching, societally, that's a big drop down. It's a big letdown. Similarly, starting business, you hear a lot of people selling how quick and easy and streamless and business is great. You'll make hundreds without doing much. No, you get to the reality, and it's a real big letdown, because the letdown is you've got to do a lot of work to get up there, to progress and to move up. So you can use it for an educational piece as well, because I think half of the challenge with a lot of therapeutic work is we need to educate people about models and structures so that people have got something that they can grasp on in the real world to move forward with. But for me personally, the fact that I can look at myself in the mirror and actively work on myself even when it's uncomfortable, is what I find the most empowering about it.
Now, Dale, you said a lot there. So I think you do have a book in you. So I tend to disagree with that. So I think that maybe you might want to rewrite that script a little bit, and because there's a lot of information there. So you might want to empower yourself that way. But that said, with all the stuff that you got there, when did you have that first aha moment? Like, I'm going to be able to help people. I'm going to be able to do some work. When did that happen, and how did that come about?
So I think so when I initially got into recruitment from the early on, I started off in recruitment, and then I said to my manager, look, I'm really more interested in the training, developing, coaching side of things, because I started two societies at university. I do juggling, fire breathing, stuff like that. But I also I started a language cafe because I did German and Spanish at uni. So anyway, I basically always liked helping people, imparting knowledge and stuff like that. And then when I was doing recruitment, I was starting to get frustrated because, like, you tell people to do stuff, they don't do stuff. You tailor how you do it, and they do it slightly more. And I'm like, oh, I really want to tailor my approach to individuals because, like the NLP presupposition, effective communication is the response it elicits. So for me, if I take full ownership for your results, if I take the ownership of how I communicate to get you to doing the thing that you need to do to be successful, I'm going to own that. So from there, I started on the NLP thing. I studied with Bandler, Angwin, did all that stuff, did the trainers bits. So that's really where it started to learn. I mean, actually, I always liked hypnosis, and my mum's like, "You're never going to learn hypnosis. Turn it off. I don't like it." Like when you had Paul McKenna in England on TV, love that stuff. But yeah, I think for me, it was the start with NLP to see what was possible, and then the transition to the metaphors work was there's so many layers in it, so many layers of understanding from archetypal imagery to developmental phases in life to meta programs in NLP. It's all layered inside these structures. And this is why I like, one, I like to teach it, two, I like to coach with it, but three, I'm constantly doing this with people in different contexts because there's always more to learn. And yeah, I definitely think there could be a book, but I think maybe I need to dictate. That's probably the issue. Handwriting now, I need to speak at somebody. Good work.
Nice. So get this. So you, with all this stuff, who are your mentors?
Who are my mentors? So my mentor is Andrew Austin. So Andrew Austin created the metaphors of movement work. He also created IEMT, which is integral eye movement therapy. And a gentleman called Nick Kemp. So Nick Kemp does Provocative Change Works. And for anyone familiar with Frank Farrelly created Provocative Therapy, which is a fabulous way of working with people. It's completely conversational. If I was to define PCW, Provocative Change Works, what it actually is imagine all the different filters of communication. So, for example, you've got open and closed communication. You've got speaking louder, quieter. You've got options versus like analog, digital. All of these different sort of functions of communication. The way it sort of looks at it is what is keeping the person in their problem? What's keeping them stuck? So normally it's the way of their thinking or their internal structure or their external environment. And it's about having conversations in a provocative way and encouraging, like, okay, so what's the issue? Well, I'm just procrastinating. It's like, well, some people just aren't meant to be successful, and there's nothing wrong with that, Nothing wrong with relaxing, We work hard. You've worked hard. You've done all this work. Why bother? We can encourage the problem in a supportive way. It's really fascinating, but for me, there's a similarity in the modalities in the sense that every coaching modality, by its structure, will lose specific exceptions. Okay, that was said really badly. Let me try and rephrase that. Every coaching modality has a frame around it. Every coaching modality has a set of rules that it follows in order to use the modality, a set of filters. And the way I strive for things is if we're using a lot of variety, if we want to have as much choice, we've got to understand as many different filters as possible so that we can then play with the ones that will make the difference. And PCW or Provocative Change Works is really good when you're working with clients because it's provocative and conversational, but it's very difficult to do on yourself. And this is where the metaphors work balances out nicely. So I'd say those are the two gentlemen. I mean, it was Grinder, Bandler, that whole camp. I did do some of that stuff, but this is the area that I'm really into. And I think it's also got a pragmatic and down-to-earth nature to things, which I also find quite refreshing.
So you got all this that you practice with your clients and all the corporate realm and stuff like that. What about at home?
Well, that's interesting. So metaphors work can also be done for dream analysis. So like when my wife wakes up, she's like, "I've had a dream." I'm just waking up. She's like, "Can you?" So I mean, yeah, I do that with my wife. But yeah, I've got my wife and my stepson here in New York. But yeah, me and my wife collaborate quite well together. She's doing her coaching thing, doing my thing. So I mean, it's not all smiles and daisies and fun all the time. We're not going to present that, but yeah, we're working it out and we're collaborating together, which is really, really good fun.
So your wife's also a coach. What does she coach?
Yeah, so she started her career as a pharmacist, and then she went into medical information on the corporate side. Then she left to actually become a Tony Robbins coach, and she did that for a time period. But then she just decided that she didn't necessarily want to do it that much in that sort of format. She wanted to create her own thing. So she's now creating a platform for people who really struggle with people pleasing and like just really not owning what you want and really not being able to say what you want for fear of upsetting others. And she's currently in development of that. So as we both grow in our business endeavors and our business understanding, it's quite a nice platform because we both work in quite different ways, but it complements in a weird roundabout way.
And I was just going to say that since it complements, there might be a part where the paths cross and you could do a package deal with you and your wife.
Paths cross, possibly. Paths cross. It's quite interesting. So I've done a few metaphors about me and my wife's relationship, and it's interesting, right? Because you can look at this, but the other thing is, if I'm having a challenge with my wife, she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I don't like." I am very bad at internally knowing. I know I feel slightly off, but I just don't have. I was talking to a woman at a conference, and she's like, "So are you telling me when I ask my husband what's wrong with him, he doesn't know?" I'm like, "No, he doesn't know how to articulate what's up." So I draw a metaphor on it, and we had an interesting one. So basically, we were both a bit up and down. And what happens is we were both on paths, but our paths are parallel. So we're not on the same path. We're going parallel, but they had hydraulics in them. So sometimes I'm up and sometimes she's down, and sometimes she's down and I'm up. So, but we're going in the same direction. We're both progressing. There may be a stage at which the paths cross. That could be true. But who knows? I'm open to any sort of crossroads or opportunity to see where the directions will take things.
Maybe
yeah.
they even join. Not only cross, but join.
Interesting. So what comes to me when you say that is I'm like, it's my path, it's not hers. She's got her own path. She can keep her own path. As long as our paths are clear. But it's quite interesting because you can challenge that. And I really appreciate your challenge. Like what you're trying to get our paths to cross, and I'm really against it. Now that could be something. Now there's two aspects to that, possibly. I'm just surmising. One potential could be I'm very aligned to my path and I don't want anyone else on my path. It could be there's maybe something that's conflicting and we need to be on the same path, but we've tried to be on the same path together, specifically in a business context, and it's created ructions because I've got my way of doing it, she's got her, and like I'm happy. So in our relationship, normally I put my wife first. But if she tries to put herself first and lead the way when it comes to the business I'm doing, it doesn't go down well. So all of these things are context specific. Like when we go out for dinner, for example, we have a vegan lifestyle. And when we go out for dinner, I don't care what I eat, realistically, most of the time. My wife loves food. She loves the variety. So for her, she normally picks what we're both having and then we share because I really don't mind. I'm cool with the variety. Unless I specifically want something, then that's fine. But I put her first a lot of the time in context. Now, this is also quite paradoxical. What do they tell you in relationships? You need to put your partner first. Well, if you put your partner first and they put you first, well, then you can't both be first. So that creates almost like a bit of a challenge. Now, the reason why that dinner situation works is because my wife puts herself first when it comes to food, and I'm second. We have a metaphorical relationship that matches and that works. And that's why it works. So business contexts that don't work. We can be side by side. Sometimes she's pushing me from behind, give me a little bit of a nudge or kick up the backside, depending. That also works. But this is where you can look at certain contexts. Because in certain relationships, you're going to have certain conflicts, and it really depends on how you relate to each other in that context.
Come on, Scott, your turn, man. Bring a question.
Okay, Dale, you've got so much going on. You're going around the world, you're lecturing at these conferences, you've got clients that you see. So what 5 years from now, when you look back, what do you hope you've accomplished? What do you expect to see?
Interesting. So I've always hated the goal question, but I've been getting better at that. So what I'd like to see in 5 years' time is me owning multiple avenues of this metaphorical work. So I still want to be training metaphors of movement. I still want to be coaching metaphors of movement. I also want to be doing the corporate side of things, essentially, because I love and see the value in this work so much and the depth to it. I want to be doing it and studying it and learning it and refining it all at the same time. So ideally, what I would love to have done in 5 years' time is have a successful corporate branch of the metaphors work where I'm doing consulting regularly using this modality, where I've had multiple trainees that have come through me. And yeah, I just have a really solid platform. I mean, if I could eat and drink this every day, I would. So I think that would be the goal. Get to a stage where I don't need to do corporate events that I don't necessarily want to do, but bring in the money. And I'm fully doing all of the aspects that really bring me joy, really excite me, but also really create value for people, clients, and the world.
Nice.
Sounds like you got a seminar planned.
Well, I mean, this is one of the big challenges. So I say metaphors of movement. People are like, well, what is that? It's such an obtuse thing. People know what NLP is. People know what hypnosis is. And for me, the first step is I need to communicate I need to get people knowing what this is. I believe in the States, there are a few trainers, but Mark Andreas does some. Obviously, he's got the core transformation stuff as well. And then you've got me. That's pretty much it. There are a few others, but I don't know anyone actively doing it. And the States is so vast. If I can just get it out there to the masses, get the people knowing about it, get the people interested in it. But it's also something that takes practice. It's not like you just learn the steps to a swish pattern, calibrate, be okay, and you can do a swish pattern. It's really learning a whole different way of communicating, which takes practice and time. And a lot of people like a nice cheeky win. I'm also looking at developing a few separate things. For example, a community for people who have done the metaphors of movement work, because there are so here's the thing. How do you know when you coach a client it's your change work that made the change? It could be you had a great session. It could be that you made the shift. It could be that you created the change. But how do you know they didn't talk to their mate Jeff down the pub? Jeff told them something profound, and now they've changed. Well, the hypnotherapist, obviously, because they want to get or the coach or therapist wants to say, well, that was me, right? So the other question is, well, I set them up for the conversation with Jeff. Maybe, maybe not. We'll never know. So for me, what I'm also looking to do is for people who really like the metaphors work like I do and want to develop themselves, I'm also want to create almost like a way of like a coaching group whereby you can work on yourself, but you can track. So, the wheel of life. Essentially doing that, but okay, for this quarter, you're going to pick your business or your relationship or whatever. And we're going to have a group or a community that just work on that for the metaphor work on that. So you can actually look back after quarter one and you're like, well, this is where I was at. These were some of the interventions. These were some of the metaphors. This is where I'm at now. Because I want to start to track longer term process, longer term trends. But yeah, I mean, I do practice groups regularly on this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I just want to make it as out there as possible so people really start to talk about it. But also for people who like the stereotypical metaphor, like the storytelling. So let's go back to the wall example that I used earlier. So let's just imagine we just got a wall, a person can't move forward, they can't take steps, they can't progress. So blockage in the way. Now, if I know that that's someone's experience, I can tell them a story for all you storytellers out there. I was actually talking to my friend Greg down the pub. Now, he was having a similar situation. Basically, his boss had said no, ultimately. Like, he really wanted to do something, put a project together, but he's like, no, and the boss was the barrier in his way. And he's like, I'm really sick and tired of this guy not allowing me to do what I want. I mean, I can see where I want to go, but okay, so he thought to himself, what can I do? So what he did is he took a step back to get an overview of the situation. And he's like, well, I get why this guy is saying no. I get why he's blocking my path. But what he said is that actually, well, what would be the right thing to do in this situation? So he explored what was right, and he actually found out that there were a lot less barriers. He could actually get around this whole thing if he just took steps in the right direction and followed the right channels. So he actually did that, and he got to the other side. So if you like isomorphically mapping metaphor consciously or unconsciously, if you have an idea of the person's unconscious structure of their reality, you can directly tell stories which map and you can provide potential solutions and options.
Nice. So listen, you got all this going on. Everything's happening. How do our viewers get a hold of you and get in touch?
How do your viewers get a hold of me? Well, I don't know if there'll be links and different things below, but metaphorsofmovement.us, metaphorsofmovement.us. You can have a little look. I do trainings. I've got one coming up in February, March for the metaphors work. But because I'm so keen to get this work out there, if you're curious, if you're a bit interested, I actually offer 3 free 30-minute demos of anybody, because to really get the work, you've got to experience the work. I think, well, that's at least how I'm starting, because it's difficult to put into words. So you can book a free 30-minute. That's going to be on the main metaphors page. Fancy a demo, but you can get a bit of a flavor for it. But yeah, feel free to reach out. My email's on there, things like that. Metaphorsofmovement.us. But yeah, I just love this stuff, and I'm just really keen to get it out there. Get it out there.
Dale.
Yes.
Awesome traveling down your magical psyche highway. And some of the stuff that you shared with us is phenomenal. And I love your take on metaphors and some of the things that you've done on metaphors. But I have a big question for you for our viewers, an important question for you for our viewers. Yes, that's right.
What's the question?
What are your words of wisdom?
What are my words? That would mean I'd need to be wise to give that sort of stuff, right?
We already know you're wise, Dale. We couldn't ask you if you're wise.
Words of wisdom. If you're working with clients, if you're working with people, whoever you're working with, what is the difference that makes the difference? What is that thing? And because sometimes I do it, like, we can get so attached to our solutions, our way of working, our thing. And for me, from a younger age, I'm really like, how can I tailor this to the people I'm speaking to? So it's okay. What's going to be the difference that make the difference? Be it your client, if your pattern's not working, if your induction's not working. Sometimes the right thing for the client is for them to go somewhere else. You're just not the right person. Sometimes you need to mix it up and just try something really random. What's the difference that makes the difference? And that's what I will always look for.
Well, Dale,
Nice.
I tend to think that you might be the difference that makes the difference here. And we're certainly glad that we appreciate having you on the podcast. Scott, do you have anything you want to throw out here?
Dale, I really appreciate you coming and sharing your time with us and taking time out of your schedule and teaching us about metaphors. And I'm sure you've got everybody completely interested because it's just fascinating. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the invite.
Dale, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to thank both of you for inviting me on. I'd like to thank all of those who have listened until the end, because you need a 5-star rating for being a good listener. And yeah, I hope to see you somewhere on this hypnotic, fun journey along the road.
Dale, it's been an extreme pleasure going down your highway. I certainly appreciate all you've done and what you've shared with us. So I really do appreciate that. So thank you. We're so glad you're here, and it's been a pleasure. And for our viewers out there, if you enjoyed the trip, then please give us a thumbs up. If you think we're assholes, give us the thumbs down. We don't care. We're just glad you're here. We hope you come back. We want to see you next week. So share it, follow us, and see you next week. Thanks for coming.
Wow, what a trip. Thanks for taking that journey with us today. Please like us, share us, and enlighten us with your views of the topics we drove into today. We appreciate you and love reading your comments. Thanks again, and we hope to see you back on the bus next week. That's right.